Hey guys, welcome back to the Wrestling Podcast, and today we're here with the Sacred Heart head coach, John Clark. How you doing, Coach Clark?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, no problem.
How's your day been so far?
It's been very good. We've had 4 practices already today, and in preparation for our match on Wednesday, and we actually have a busy week. We have a match again on Sunday, a week from today as well.
Okay.
So are you guys doing like your practices in groups? Because you said you had 4.
Yeah, we were doing up to 7 because in case anyone was knocked out for quarantine reasons, it wouldn't eliminate us from having a team. I think sometimes when people practice in one group or 2 groups and they get put into quarantine, they have to end up canceling a dual meet. And we don't want to do that. Even if we have to be shorthanded, we'd rather that and have people compete than canceling an overall dual meet. And with that comes a lot of time. I mean, there's days where we're in the wrestling room for 12 hours, but to me, it's worth it.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So let's get started with the first question. So you're a coach, a former collegiate wrestler, a high school state champion, but how and when did you get started with wrestling?
Yeah, so my father won a national championship as a college coach at the Division III level at St. Lawrence University, and that's in Canton, New York. And then my brother won a high school national championship in 1993, and that was when I started. The following year, I started in 7th grade to wrestle varsity. In New York, you're able to wrestle varsity in 7th grade, where a lot of states you have to wait till 9th grade. And so I did a decent amount of wrestling when I was real young, but got really serious, obviously, wrestling varsity as a 7th grader. However, as Canton, New York, there's 2 Division I hockey schools within 10 miles of each other. So I was actually a hockey player and better at hockey than I was at wrestling. And then made a decision, like I said, because you can only play one sport in the winter season. And so fortunately, I picked wrestling, although a lot of people in my hometown know me as a hockey player, ironically enough.
Okay.
Oh,
That's crazy.
awesome. Yeah, so you just said you have 2 brothers and you come from a kind of wrestling family. You said your dad wrestled. So Charlie and Mitch, who are both good wrestlers himself. I think you just said the age gap, but what was it like having them as brothers to help you, especially in wrestling? And how much did you get to roll around with them?
Yeah, so I have an older brother who's 5 years older, Mitch, and then a younger brother, Charlie, who's 5 years younger than me. Along with that, we have 4 sisters as well. So that's obviously very cool. Big family, 7 kids. Now I have 17 nieces and nephews.
Oh,
Jeez.
Yeah, it's crazy. But we were never on the same team. So that was something, at least in college, for 1 year, me and my little brother overlapped. So it wasn't so much that we were working out a lot together, like some brothers, but it was more of a situation where I leaned on my brother's expertise, and I was actually telling someone today that my brother won a national championship without having an older brother, but he learned how to win from my father, who won a national championship. And then in turn, my little brother won a national championship at Blair Academy. And we all kind of helped each other and used the knowledge of the various experiences that we had. And I think in turn made us all a little bit better.
yeah, for
Yeah, that's
sure,
awesome.
I bet. So you went to Canton High School in New York, where you won 2 state titles, I believe. Can you talk about your high school career? As there wasn't like a lot of background on that.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's we're up in northern New York, and no one from our area had ever won a state championship in wrestling. And so I was the first person to do that. But along the way, my brother finished second in the state twice, which is ironic because he won a national championship weeks later. But we all wanted to win for the section that we were in. And so I remember the feeling that my brother had and just being so devastated and crying after losing in the overtime in the state finals. I told my brother, I'm going to get it for you. And it took me quite a bit of time. because like I said, I started varsity in 7th grade, and it wasn't until my junior year till I won a title. But I was fortunate enough to win, and it wasn't just for me; it was for the community and for my brother, and something that I had promised him. And it was something that I really was adamant that if I got a little bit better every year and I showed improvement, that naturally I would just put myself in a good position. And sure enough, I was put in that position, and was able to get 5th in my sophomore year, and then I won my junior and senior year.
All right, nice.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So then you went on to go to Ohio State, which your brother went to. Was it a guarantee that if you could go there, that you were going to go there?
That's a great question. I think for some people it was an obvious choice all along, but I wanted to make sure that I was exploring every opportunity. I was recruited heavily. I guess partly because I was a 2-time state champ in New York, but I think more than that, it was just because my brother was fresh off winning a national title. So I always have to thank him for opening up so many doors for me. And I gave it a lot of, I looked at Oklahoma, I looked at Penn State, I looked at Michigan State, just so many different schools, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't just follow my brother blindly. But it all came back to family, and all came back to the opportunity for, not only did I go to Ohio State and as well as both my brothers, but I wanted my brother to be my coach. And so he was my coach, and it was really unique because I had the same 4 coaches for all my 5 years there. And now I don't know how much you guys follow college wrestling, but there's a lot of turnover between head coaches and assistants, and to have the same coaches and no turnover was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I bet. So, as you were saying earlier, Mitch, your brother was the assistant coach at Ohio State. What was it like being coached by your brother, especially since that he was like a really good wrestler yourself?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question, because a lot of people think, oh, it was great, brother, your coach, but brother's still your coach, and brothers are brothers, and there's there's definitely some things that he knows how to push my buttons, and he knows in both ways. He knows what gets me motivated and things that will not. And so I think that really helped. And it was just so nice to be in the middle of a match and look over and having your brother there. I mean, when you're competing sometimes in front of 15,000 people, it's overwhelming. And it was almost like a voice of reason, like just everything's going to be fine. And not only that, I knew my college coach really well because my brother had wrestled there, and I'd been to so many camps and matches there. So there was just an extreme comfort level there. And on top of that, there were so many people that I knew just because my brother went there, and my younger brother went there too. So there was 15 straight years that one of us Clarks was at Ohio State. And so the amount of people that I know from that school is amazing. And so I'm forever thankful, because it's very unique. If you ever saw like how small our hometown was to go to the biggest school in the country, we kind of needed something like an older brother there to reassure you that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah, I bet.
Was there some time?
Would you and your brother ever wrestle at practice?
Not much. And a lot of people ask that question, and it's a tremendous question. We would wrestle like more. We would start out as like a joke, like, oh yeah, hey, how's it going? Like give each other 5, and then someone would take a shot, and then next thing you know, like the couch was getting tumbled over and lamps, and it always started out as like a joke, like, hey, whatever, good to see ya. And then my mom would just be like, don't ruin anything. This is, and my dad was kind of like loving it, but didn't want to say it. But most of our wrestling, believe it or not, came impromptu like that more than in the practice room, because we were so competitive with each other. Sometimes it would have been a little counterproductive for us to actually wrestle on a mat. And I know that sounds weird because so many brothers rely so much on each other, but that's just the way, and I'm not even sure why, but that's the way it progressed with us.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you.
I know what you mean.
We both have brothers that are like a year apart.
Okay, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, my brother's a freshman and I'm in 8th grade and we wrestle. So like,
Yeah. Okay. So
I don't,
now I'm speaking your language.
yeah, I completely agree with you. Completely. All right. So your freshman and sophomore year, you didn't become an All-American. So your brother was a national champion. Does that like put you any stress going into that junior and senior year, saying like he's a national champion? Is it like like you need to be an All-American? Is there any sign of pressure?
That's a tremendous question because you do feel it, and you're like, holy cow. But then you remember he wasn't an All-American until his junior year either. So
Okay, yeah.
my redshirt year, I got 48 matches, I only know one person in the history of college wrestling that had more matches than that during the redshirt year. So that's even before my eligibility started. I had almost 50 matches, and so I felt pretty well seasoned going into my first year. The first year, I was just happy to make the national tournament. Probably some people are. I mean, obviously, you want to be an All-American and national champ right away, but it's I was content with that. My sophomore year, I was the 8th seed at nationals, and it's not a particularly good spot to be in the bracket. The 9th seed's tough, and if you win, you got the number 1 seed. No excuses, but I lost to a national champ. Then the 9th seed, he went on to win nationals the following year, but and then just came short of being top 8 or All-American. I was the 8th seed, so I was in position to do that. In the 2 weeks before that, a little side story is that I was beating the person that won nationals that year. I was beating him in the Big Ten finals, about 30 seconds left, and I kind of had a moment where I was like, I shouldn't be beating him. And as you guys are progressing through the ranks, I hope you never have that experience because, and I tell the kids on my team now, you really only can have it once because you can beat anyone. And don't ever, if you're in a position where you're beating a hammer, I don't care what sport it is, or you're beating a really good team in hockey, it doesn't matter. Don't be scared to win. And I know it sounds really weird, but in turn, when I lost, I went from probably a 3rd or 4th seed to an 8th seed, and that put me in a tough spot in the bracket. And so I didn't place. And then, yeah, you only have 2 years left to make it happen, and you're really kind of pressed. But sometimes that pressure allows you to make sure that things happen. And so then I got 6th place my junior year and then 5th place my senior year.
All right, nice.
Awesome.
So,
I have a question. Was there like a mindset change, or would you say you tightened down on technique between your sophomore year to your junior, senior year?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would just say it was more of something that I was like, all right, I have to make this happen now. And on top of that, we really had high hopes for our team. And so it was more of a situation where I was like, we have to do this and we have to do better than any other team in Ohio State history. And so my senior year, we ended up finishing 3rd in the country. I'm very much a team player. And even when I'm a coach now, I talk, yeah, wrestling can be an individual sport, but I talk about the team a lot. So it was just important for me to do as well as I can individually as it was for our team. So that was something that we really bought in, and luckily it all worked out. But looking back, you kind of forget how much pressure, because I even to this day, I apologize to my college coach for not winning a national title, and he invested a scholarship in me. And then here I am I didn't do, even though I had more wins than my older brother in college, I still didn't win a national title like he did.
Yeah.
now, do you think if you went back, do you think you could have won one?
That's a great question. I think my biggest problem on why I didn't win a national title is that I ran out of time, and I got better every year, but I lost to some really good wrestlers. I would have done a lot of things differently, and to ensure that happened. And I might have tried a different weight class. I wrestled the same weight class for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, so obviously when you look back, it's a little easier. Part of me says like I would do some things differently to try to win a national title. And then other part of me is like, I'm kind of happy that I had a decent career. And if I would have changed things and it would have gone worse, So I don't know. It's that like the fact that you asked that question is phenomenal. And I think that if I was going to try to win a national title, it might have been going up a weight class and might have meant that I didn't All-American one of the years that I did, but it might have meant that I won a national title. So I know that's a long answer to a short question, but I apologize on that.
Yeah. So I have kind of like a follow-up. You think if you beat the national champion in the Big Ten finals, do you think you would have won that year? Your junior year?
I don't know if I would have won that year, but I would have, because my sophomore year, I was still pretty young. And there was some still, I think it would have changed forever. And I know I would have had a nice big 10 ring on my finger that I could wear all the time. I wouldn't wear it all the time, but to this day, I don't have a Big Ten championship ring. My brother's got a Big Ten championship ring and a national championship ring. Not that we're wrestling for rings or whatever, but I'm a big believer of once you get good, you're not really going to do worse. So if I would have won my sophomore year, I would have won my junior, and I would have won my senior year, and it would have put me in a better position in the bracket to have won a national title. And that's my mess. You know what? I feel like that's almost meant to be that I didn't win, because it's the message that I tell my kids now is that you have to embrace every moment and don't make the same mistake that I did and look at the score and you're beating the number one team in the country or you're beating number one wrestler in the country and be scared to lose. So I lost, in my opinion, on behalf of a lot of people, so that when you guys get in that position one day, you're going to remember this podcast and you're going to be like, no, I remember what happened to Coach Clark. I'm not going to lose in this match or, game or whatever you guys are doing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's some awesome intake. So then you go on after college, you become a coach. But before Sacred Heart, you've helped coach at many other schools, Brown University for most of the time, Lehigh, and Stanford for a year. So talk about the process when you were done wrestling to go to help coaching at other schools, now to become the head coach at Sacred Heart University.
Well, I think you said it best. It is a process. And, you're riding high after a decent career. And then you literally, I've been a volunteer coach. I've been a second assistant. I've been a head assistant and now a head coach. And I feel like someone who's been a janitor to work their way up to being a CEO of a company. I know how to do every little piece that it takes to make a successful program run. And so I feel grateful for that. My goal was to be a head coach at the Division I level by the time I was 30. And I didn't reach that till I was 36. So I kind of reached it, but kind of not. But all those different schools put me in a position to lead where I am leading now. I learned a lot along the way. And so was it hard during some of those? Yeah. It's tough being an assistant coach and paying dues for all that time. I coached at Brown University for 6 years and I didn't get the head coaching job when it became available. And that was tough, but it's similar to something else where you have setbacks that in turn you stay with it. Now I have an opportunity to coach somewhere else, and I was able to get the head coaching job. And I think a lot of assistants along the way are like, I can't do this any longer. I keep trying for this. I keep trying. I'm not getting any head coaching jobs. I'm going to try another field. And to me, I didn't keep my eye on the prize, and no different in trying to be an All-American. So I think it's a good lesson for people. And I'm not a particularly patient person, but in the case of trying to achieve a goal, sometimes you have to be very patient.
For sure. So COVID's kind of been making this last, now we can call it like year or so, a tricky situation, especially with wrestling. What are the protocols like in your practice room, and what's the process like competing with other teams?
Yeah, we're dealing with it every day, but the good thing is that we are able to wrestle and we're being safe, and we're having a lot of different groups that are practicing to minimize the risk of it. And also on top of that, we're doing things the right way, because we remember those days in March and April and May when we're wondering if we're going to have a season. And so for us, I talked about having 7 different practices a day, and that's a lot of work for everyone. But it's important that we do that to keep everyone safe, but also it allows us, even if someone is, or a group does go out, we still have 6 other groups that are still able to compete. And we just wrestled recently at VMI in Virginia, and we had to forfeit 2 weight classes. And it's never fun forfeiting any weight classes, especially with only 10 weights in college. But the good news is we had 8 wrestlers that were able to wrestle, and we lost a dual meet, but we also remember that feeling that we had when we're all quarantined to our house in April and May, and we're so thankful for that. And they even allowed 250 fans there, and so it was phenomenal. And I don't know if every coach is willing to do that, but to me, everything is about giving the student athlete a chance to wrestle.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So you and a Sacred Heart are in the EIWA conference, where also the Ivy League schools are in. And the Ivy Leagues, I think 2 months ago, announced that they wouldn't be wrestling this year. Was it any harder scheduling meets since the Ivy League schools were not wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, we wrestle a lot of the Ivy schools in dual meets, and then obviously through our conference tournament. But I feel bad for them. It's tough because, again, it's always about the kids. But it's something that we had to just pivot and find other people to wrestle. The good thing is we're in a location, we're about an hour and a half away from New York City, so in any direction we have a lot of schools that we can wrestle. So it wasn't incredibly tough to find different opponents. It's more just a situation where we are going to have to wrestle some teams that we're not normally wrestling, and some less matches this year than we would on a traditional year. It will get interesting. We have typically 17 schools in the IWA. So you mentioned the 6 Ivy League schools plus Franklin and Marshall, F&M, and they also opted out this season as well. So now we're down to 10 schools in our conference tournament. And so it's interesting to see how that's going to work out as we prepare and find allocations for the national tournament and see how they're going to qualify and the fairest way to do that. So that's being worked out right now, but it could be an opportunity where we have less people in the tournament, and we're looking for our first national qualifier since 2007 as a school here at Sacred Heart.
All right, nice. That'd be awesome for sure. All right, so since this year is a little different, and with none of your guys at Sacred Heart losing their eligibility for competing, I think that's allowing a lot of extra matches at meets. What do you think of this, and are you guys capitalizing on this opportunity as a team?
We had extra matches in our last duel, and I think going forward, not only this year but years, well, hopefully forever, this will be a thing that stays. I think it allows everyone to wrestle. Obviously, this is a free year for everyone. And we have 14 seniors this year, and our administration asked how many people are coming back, and the real answer is we don't know, because technically every one of those 14 seniors could come back because this year doesn't count against their eligibility clock. Now, I don't know if all 14 or none of them or half of them. I have no idea, but I think that's going to determine, not just here at Sacred Heart, but at schools across the country, how much are these kids willing to, give up going to work or whatever they're deciding to do to stay another year. And my opinion always is get as much education as you can. And so I hope they all stay and get their master's degree and set themselves up for the future. If they all do that, they'll be happy, because I don't know anyone that furthers their education that regrets it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%.
So when I look at Sacred Heart, the thing I see is improvement, as you guys have improved every single year. I think so. You guys are 2-10, then 5-7, and then last year you guys were 8-6. What has been the key to improvement so far, and what are you guys going to keep doing to improve?
Yeah, it's not easy, especially as the competition gets, we schedule tougher and tougher opponents every year. But the reason why the kids are improving is because they see value in what we're doing, and they are excited about improvement. So my opinion is you can never get burned out of something that you're improving on. You can never say, I'm sick of this. Now, where it becomes problematic is if you go in the other direction and say, we're not getting any better. This is no fun. I wish that, no, when you're seeing improvement and everyone's excited about that, you literally can't wait to get to practice, because you're basically, what's happening is you want to go up against these schools that are, oh yeah, we got Sacred Heart, this should be an easy match, and all of a sudden we're in a dogfight with them. And that's exciting for any wrestler. And I think one thing that's helped on our end is that we've made it a team concept. And like I said earlier, it's wrestling can, yes, it's an individual sport, but to me, it's always a team sport first.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So Sacred Heart has about a 50 athlete roster, which is the largest in the country. How is managing that roster? Like, how difficult is that? And talk about the benefits of a 50-man roster in like practice.
Yeah. I mean, I could, there's, well, let's put it this way. There's pros and cons. There's good things and there's bad things with having the biggest roster or second biggest, depending on the year. Obviously you have more athletes to work out with. So when these kids go to train at these clubs, which I've owned a club too, and they want to know who they can work out with, and they don't want to work out with the same people every time that they go there. So it's nice to be able to have different workout partners for them. It's nice to be able to, in a given year, provide depth so that it's not, someone doesn't get like a free, like automatically they're going to be the starter. Competition is a good thing. And as my teammate in college said, good teams have those problems where you have a couple good kids at one weight. And so it's really good to have multiple people and have a big team. On top of that, there's so much energy in the room every single day because of the big roster. And we love that. We love being able to, I mean, if I go live on Instagram with our lifts, people are just amazed at how much energy there is when you have 50 people in there lifting.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, people love to lift anyway, but when you put all those people in there, the energy is just phenomenal. And then when we show up, we travel with everyone for every competition that we do. So we'll show up with dual meet with 10 people wrestling, and we're out there. I mean, our goal is to have more fans there or athletes than the other team. And so I could go on and on about having a huge roster. And like I said, there's some downsides to it too, but overall I wouldn't change it any other way. And I'm thankful for an administration that supports it.
Yeah, for sure. I bet.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, especially with the lifts and stuff. I can imagine, like, you got 50 people, like, once one people going for like their PR or something.
Oh,
yeah, everybody yelling.
It gets so silly.
Yeah, I can imagine. So with that big of a roster, how do you guys stretch the scholarship money?
Well, it's you know, that's a good question in the sense that you know, you want to make sure that you field in a good team and you want to do it fairly. So it's a balancing act. But luckily we have a lot of people that are working very hard that are deserving of that. And so we're excited to not only have the success that we had before, but we're excited that those athletes and other athletes, because we treat, whether they're on scholarship or not scholarship, we treat them the same. You know, there's plenty of people that, you know, we're walk-ons that we're able to get money, and it's just nice to see everyone on the team seeing value in it. And, you know, we leave it to the coaches to make the decisions on how it's finally allocated. But overall, everyone's really understanding because we're all just trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I bet. So what are some of the things you look for when you're recruiting a wrestler?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, because, you know, you can always just, I think the number one thing that a lot of coaches do is look for credentials. Like, did this person win states? Did they were, you know, to me, how much do they love wrestling? Because wrestling's hard. Wrestling's a tough sport. And I played a ton of other sports, and I understand how tough wrestling can be. So I want to see how much they love wrestling. Obviously, it helps if they, you know, were successful in high school. But I also want to see how healthy they've been, because, you know, it really, if you're getting hurt a lot in high school, chances are you're going to get hurt a lot in college. And then obviously beyond all that is their character. And there's a story of Tom Brands, the head coach at Iowa. When he would go and visit these recruits in their high school, he would just walk up to the people in the hallways, and they didn't know who Tom Brands was. They just saw this guy, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think of so and so?" And you know, kids, like, you guys are in school, like, you're gonna just tell whatever, good, bad, or indifferent. You're gonna tell them what you think. And, in other words, if they say, "Hey, what do you think of this person?" Well, I don't really like him. I don't like the way he treats people. He thinks he's better than everyone else. Well, as you know, that kid may never know that you asked that question, but it's something that the coach is like, I don't know if I really want that on my team. I want people that are humble, that are hardworking, and that treat people with respect, no matter how good they are, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
with COVID, some people are going to catch it, some people are going to have a contact, and people are going to have to quarantine. But I'm guessing with your large lineup, it makes it a little easier filling in spots. Is that a plan this year to have as less forfeits as you guys can with such a big roster?
We're trying. I mean, the tough thing is we're testing so much that you could find out the day of a match, and then that makes it a little tougher. But I just made a post the other day on social media that we're not going to cancel. And I want other teams to kind of take that same approach, because I look across the country, and not just wrestling, but other sports too. They're canceling left and right. And to me, it's always about the kids and the student athletes. And so, we're going to pay close attention to the rules, but here we are on a Sunday doing this, and we had 6 hours of practice today, ensuring that if there was an issue at all, that we have people waiting in the wings that are going to be prepared. And obviously no one wants that, but we're doing that because it's the safest thing to do. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of good things that can happen when you have a big roster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
For sure.
All right. So another big thing that happened at Sacred Heart was the addition of a women's wrestling program. What went on to get that women's program, and how is it being the first D1 women's program in the state of Connecticut?
Yeah, first in the state of Connecticut, second in the entire country for Division I. And so since we've announced that, there's been, I would say, probably around 60 schools that have reached out to me, like, how do you do this? Why didn't I think of this? And it's nothing grand that we did that other schools haven't. But to me, I obviously winning and is important, but I want to make things fair. And I have 4 sisters. They didn't wrestle, but I understand equality. And I wanted to make sure that these girls had an equal opportunity to compete. And so I, as a leader of the men's program, luckily am trusted by the university and have a voice to say, all right, we can do this. And then they're asking, well, how does it exactly look? And then we look into it and we do the necessary steps to add it. We really believe that we can change wrestling as a whole just because we added it. And I'm not kidding. I mean, the amount of, you guys just take note and remember this, and you can archive this episode, and 3 years from now, we're going to look back and there's going to be triple the amount of schools, if not 5 times the amount of schools that have it, because of a simple ad that we had. And, sometimes we're the Sacred Heart Pioneers for our mascot. And a pioneer is just basically something that is pioneering, doing something new. We really believe that we have a platform and a voice. And if we can stand up for all the girls out there that want to wrestle just like the guys, then we can change the sport, not just on the men's side, but help all these girls across the country have an equal opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I bet. So Emmett, do you want to do this one?
Yeah, how hard is it finding matches to wrestle for the girls, since it's a new program, it's a new D1, it's only second in the country, first in state? How hard is it wrestling, other schools in the area?
Yeah, we put together a schedule with 11 competitions without leaving, going further than Pennsylvania. And to put that in context,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's about 5 hours away. We can have 11 competitions. There'll be a time when we can go 2 hours away and fill our competition just like we could on the men's side. But until then, we're gonna make sure that we make it mainstream. And that was one of the things that they had asked. Well, who are we going to compete against? And working with the National Wrestling Coaches Association and putting together basically a map on the popularity of it, because it is an emerging sport and it's growing at an incredible rate. It wasn't as hard as a lot of people thought to be able to have competitions without traveling incredibly far.
Yeah,
for sure. So, our last question, last but for sure not least, do you have any advice for a middle school or a high school wrestler looking to wrestle D1?
Well, I think giving you guys advice is you don't need it. Look at you guys having a podcast, and the questions that you guys came up with are incredible, and it's something that hopefully you guys continue to do this, because it's amazing and you guys are very good at what you do. But for the people that aren't as savvy and are looking to create a name for themselves, I think the biggest thing to do is just see improvement and try to find, if your record's 20-20 one year, don't get discouraged. Try to be 30-10 the next year, right? And just basically improve. And so the other thing that I would encourage everyone to do, and I'm sure you guys are probably looking at other podcasts on how to get better and how to different ideas. And so you're going to, I said earlier, like to my brother, how did you know that you could be a national champ? And my brother leaned on my dad, who also won a national championship. And so my biggest suggestion to anyone is just have a good mentor, or have someone that can lead you into accomplishing amazing things, because there's so many people out there with so much potential, but they're just like, I don't know if I can be good. I don't know if you're surrounded by someone who's already done it, I think that can help a lot. So really just the last thing I would say is be positive, right? For a lot of times I was coached with people that were like, all right, you didn't do this right, you got to do that. No, I really believe that the best way to make someone motivated is with positivity. And so I think that can go a long way. But again, I just want to thank you guys so much. You guys have an incredible future in front of you. And I guess we're on episode 38 here. And it'll be fun to look back to see what you guys accomplished through this.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks. All right. So I actually have one more question.
Right,
more question. So I have to ask you, you've wrestled, you've coached. What do you like better, sitting back in the chair, yelling at your athletes, or competing yourself?
That's a great question. I'll tell you this. Every experience is the same. I've coached at little kids tournaments where I get just as excited at, like, I think it's like NCAA finals. Like, that's how excited I am. And I've been an athlete and I have that same excitement. I think it's all the same. And I loved my time as an athlete, and I love the highs and lows as a coach too, because you're winning and losing with every single wrestler. And so there's more chances to win. There's also more chances to potentially lose. But it's so fun because literally, I mean, especially when you're at a tournament, I'm running from one mat to another. And even if someone loses, you got another person who's right up and you can win. And so I think it's a great question, because as much as that you could say, well, it's an athlete or coach, my biggest thing through all of it is all the same. But I will say this, it's a lot more fun to win than to lose.
Yeah, I can say the same thing. It's definitely funner for me to win a match than lose a match.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Good luck to Sacred Heart the rest of the year. You said how many more competitions do you guys have this year?
We have 4 more competitions, and then hopefully,
so
I want you guys rooting for us. I want you to check on February 26th. to see if we can go back and see this this podcast here, where if we get a national qualifier, and it'd be the first time. And nationals this year are in St. Louis, one of my favorite cities. So, maybe it gives you, I'm sure you're following a lot of teams, but if you, a month and some change away, if you check it out, it'd be great for you guys to see that little school here in Connecticut can be mighty with some of the great schools around the country.
All right, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
much, and good luck to Sacred Heart in the future.
Let's get the first national qualifier.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
You too, Coach Clark.
You too.
Bye.